What's up, guys? So the episode that you're about to watch is a little dated. Unfortunately, because of the topic at hand, we're going to be talking about the smoke bug and some of the things that we say in the episode. Very reasonably, Tundra didn't want to release it on their YouTube, so they gave it back to us to release on my YouTube. Also, between Blast and Dream League, things ended up just getting really delayed. But this episode is on my channel, but all future episodes you could check out at the Tundra channel. We'll get a link to that somewhere up there. But yeah, so this episode's going to be on the smoke bug, and we recorded it a couple weeks ago. Obviously, this is pretty old news, but we recorded it, so might as well release it. Also, on another note on this, in the episode, I think we talk about how players and teams would like bring bugs to Valve at TI, and Valve would make a ruling. Um, they would get these bugs from bugs, mechanics, whatever, and they would get them from teams individually, and they would tell the teams like, "You give us these bugs and mechanics, and we will tell you whether or not you can use them. If you can't use them, we will ban it outright across the tournament. But if you can use it, we'll let you use it, and we won't tell other teams." So this was a way for teams to be bringing things that they weren't sure if like were bugs or mechanics or exactly what, and also kind of just a good faith measure to try and make it so TI isn't determined by that sort of thing. So I think we referenced that a bit inside of this episode. And I'm here at Dream League with Gunnar, and we had a conversation. He had, I think, a pretty solid point, which was that he said that he believes players were surprised by sort of all the outrage and stuff and the response to this bug being such a big issue, because there has sort of been a culture built up of bugs being used within the regular season and then them being brought to Valve at TI. That's just been kind of the culture for years at this point in time. During the regular season, bringing up bugs to TOs would very often get messy and weird, since Valve maybe doesn't always respond, or at least respond fast enough, like the Azure Ray Watcher bug debacle at Bali Major, if you remember that one. So it's just kind of like some bad stuff can happen. So it just kind of set this culture that, you would just use bugs during the regular season, and some people would know about them, some people wouldn't. And then when it came to TI, the big tournament, right, then everybody was supposed to come forward with the information that they have, and Valve would make a ruling. So that's just kind of the culture that's built up, which I think is a very solid point and adds to the discussion. And for me, I think it makes all the more apparent anyway that as Dota moves forward, potentially with less Valve oversight, who knows, but if Valve is to become less involved, then we need to be able to police each other more and more with this sort of thing. Also, if TI is not the only big tournament that matters, right, we don't want Riyadh being determined by this sort of thing. We're running multiple $1 million tournaments back to back to back. We don't want, those tournaments being determined by this sort of thing either. So yeah, just a little note at the start of the episode, and enjoy. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Not for Broadcast with your hosts, me, your other host, Avery. We're going to be talking about, I think, what everybody is expecting for us to talk about, especially since it's probably going to be in a thumbnail and the title. It's what everybody's been talking about for the last week, so we're just going to get right into it. There has been some smoke abuse, Avery. There is a bug in the game, a smoke bug. How long did you know about this bug? Out of curiosity.
I did not actually know about it.
Okay, so you found out the same time that it went up, this whole thing where Navi Jr. got banned. So you found out about it at that time. I also found out about it at that time. Apparently, there are some players and teams out there that found out about it, probably because they weren't at a LAN event or something like that. Seems to be some people that didn't know about it. And yet, at the same time, it seems like there are a lot of people who knew about it for a very long time. Who knows how long. But if you guys don't know what we're talking about, if we're just the only source for Dota news for you, first of all, thank you for that. But there is a bug in the game now. It is now gone. I hope. I'm sure we're going to find out in like a week or two that there's some weird way that you can still use the bug in some certain situation. But there is a bug in the game where you are able to see whether or not the enemy used a smoke they had in their inventory. How you do that is by clicking on their hero portrait to bring up their inventory, right clicking and doing the alert allies. I think there are other ways to be able to do it, like such as like dragging the smoke out of their inventory or something like that. The point is that they have a smoke and you are able to tell when the smoke is used because the alert allies button will no longer be there, or you can't move the smoke or something like that. You can't drag the smoke. So you are able to tell that a smoke was used, giving you information that, I mean, I think it's pretty fair to say you should not have and clearly is not intended, right? Can we agree on that, Avery?
Well, we'll see. We'll see what we agree on here. But continue.
I mean, we got to agree on the baseline here.
Well, let's just finish your speech.
I was just explaining the bug. That's all.
Yeah, a nice little bug tutorial. That's great. Great, Austin. Just really promoting the right things in the community here.
I mean, it's gone now, so
tutorial.
It's not like
supposedly these bugs are never gone. Let me tell you that much.
But that is true.
Whatever. Continue.
We had the what was it? The Meepo Midas bug or whatever. The iterations of that one. So that happened. Apparently, that has been a thing in the game for a little while. Our understanding, I think, the first time it showed up under a rule set was ESL 1 Bangkok, where apparently the ESL told the teams, there's this bug in the game, do not use it. I have heard that it was used at a Blast event. I think the first Blast event it was used at. PGL specifically banned it in their last qualifiers that they ran. And the problem occurs is that ESL did not restate that the bug is banned in their most recent qualifiers for ESL 1 Raleigh. And the end result of it is that there are many teams who use the bug, some more than others. And how this first came out is that Navi Jr. beat Avalos in the lower bracket final, secured a spot to ESL 1 Raleigh over Avalos. Avalos thought there was something suspicious going on. I don't know if they went through the replay or what, but maybe they found, the exact smoke bug and told ESL. Either way, they let ESL know there was something going on. ESL looked into it, found that Navi was using the smoke bug and disqualified them.
So I'm sorry. This whole thing is just so stupid. Continue. I'm sorry.
No. Explain why what's stupid about it.
I mean, it's just whatever. I'll just keep going, man. Just finish it.
Okay. This created quite an uproar because, well, a team got disqualified. It comes out that other teams had utilized this, particularly since there are some fans of Navi Jr. out there. They found other teams had been using the smoke bug as well. And they said, well, why aren't these guys banned or disqualified? ESL said that, okay, we are going to launch an investigation to thoroughly go through all this. It took over a week before they came out with the findings of their investigation. The findings of their investigation, they put out a big post. You can read through it. I'm going to try and summarize some of this. It seems like a pretty thorough investigation, at least the way that's what they put forward. They had something weird about a bug perspective, which almost seems weird and dumb enough that I believe that was part of the reason why they didn't catch more people. Apparently, they developed a software tool, or somebody else developed a software tool to help run them through all the footage. Because as you can imagine, you have to look through 10 different people's perspective throughout the entire game, because this bug can be used from the start to the game to the end of the game, and any person can use it. So you're talking about 10 people's perspective, an hour-long game. You can fast forward or whatever, but you're still talking about 10 hours of footage, right? So obviously it's a lot of footage to go over, especially for a full qualifiers. So apparently
They have some sort of software tool to help with that now. A lot of the community and the players, I understand, some of the teams in contact with ESL had criticisms about the fact that ESL failed to restate the fact that the smoke bug was not to be utilized, and therefore Navi Junior shouldn't be banned. ESL in their post admitted full fault on that. That they said they should have restated that this specific bug is not allowed. And then they came out with their full punishment. It is divided into sections. There are 4 sections: major bug abuse, moderate bug abuse, and then the other 2, which is like minor and accidental or whatever. The highlights of it are the major or systematic abuse of the bug. These are for teams who've utilized the bug a lot. 9 Pandas, 160 times. Navi Junior, 115 times. Aurora, 50 times. They have, for these guys are disqualified. So the only one that it pertains to is Navi Junior, because they were the only one to actually qualify. But if Aurora or 9 Pandas are like next up because the team from their region can't make it or whatever, they will not have the opportunity to replace that team. Now, for some of the other teams, there is a moderate abuse. Now, the highlight here is that Tundra and Spirit are on this list. Tundra at 9 times, Spirit at 7. These are 2 teams that are obviously bigger name teams who have qualified for the event. Tundra did it 9 times. Spirit did it 7 times. So they did use the bug. And in fact, ESL specifically stated in their post something about how like they didn't use it as often, but potentially crucial times. So they did sort of allude to the fact that even though they were used a lot less, significantly less than Navi Junior, they still may have had an impact on the game. At least that's what I took from their wording there. To wrap it up, there's this minor and accidental thing, but the highlight I think there is that 40 teams are not suspected of using the bug out of the entire qualifiers, and 7 of them are in the minor or accidental category. So basically 47 teams did not abuse the bug. A final thing on this is that they have they also put their rule book on bug abuse. It has the following statement: the intentional use of any bugs, glitches, or errors in the game can be assessed with penalties up to and including default losses. Furthermore, it is up to the referee's discretion whether or not the use of said bugs had an effect on the match and whether or not they will force a rematch. In extreme cases, the penalty for abusing bugs may be even higher. Normal stuff. This part's pretty important, though. Bugs in this case are issues with the game that the administration will forewarn participants about. Issues wherein the game behaves unusually or not as expected based on an individual's interpretation of patch notes, ability text, and so on will not be considered a bug unless there is a direct comment on the matter from the administration. So, that's the end. That's the TLDR of what happened and ESL's post. So I think that's a good break to talk about it. We got other things to talk about afterwards, but Avery, I think we just kind of talk about this, and at the end, I think we do like a vibe check, because I'll tell you I have some feelings on the whole thing, and what my ruling would be on this situation. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So what'd you make of the...
That was fucking long as shit, dude. God damn. We have to edit that down. That was like 10 fucking minutes. Fucking Jesus, man. Just TLDR. Too fucking, yeah, definitely. Just saying for the post-production. What are my thoughts? I mean, I got a lot of thoughts, but let's start with some of the technicalities. Regarding the difference in bugs, I'm aware of a lot of other bugs that currently exist in the game and have existed in previous patches that teams have abused. I think it has existed forever and it will always exist. The game has too many elements for there not to be those types of things.
Okay.
I generally divide these into two categories, and I think most people do. There are bugs that are, I want to call them like even footing bugs. Like they're mechanics or interactions that exist in the game that either team can use. Maybe you have an opportunity to draft it, maybe you have an opportunity to ban it, or you have a feel for it. But people are playing around it and they get used to it and it just exists in the game. Not everybody might be aware of them, but you still have a chance to get a feel for it. Examples of this are things that basically skew the power level. So you have stuff like the Storm Shard, the Tiny Toss, right? There are things that are just
Yeah.
doing more damage than they should. Is that a bug? Yes. Are people using it? Yes. But you're going to play against it every pub. You're going to play against it in all your scrims. You're going to play against it in tournaments. You have a power feel for how much damage this spell is doing, even if you don't really understand why. And you know Tiny or Storm are broken. So you have a chance to ban it or play it yourself. I view those as like even footing bugs. They should get patched. They should get fixed. But while they exist in the game, you got to just let people play with them because it's like it's not something that is an unfair advantage you're gaining that it can't be prevented via draft or counters or whatever, right? It's just a
Okay.
power scaling
So
thing.
when you say even footing, you don't mean that both teams can use it, because that is the case for this bug, right? Both teams can use the bug.
I view it as like it's not malicious, I guess.
Sure. It's in the game. You can't really help the fact
Like
that Storm Spirit does more damage, or
yeah,
that Tiny Toss does more
so
damage.
for
And you can
example,
draft around it.
imagine Team A and Team B. Team A has knowledge that Tiny Toss does way more damage in its bug. Team B does not. So does Team A go into every game and first pick Tiny? Well, the thing is, like, Team B is probably also in all these games trying to first pick Tiny, even if they don't understand it, because they can literally cast the spell and see it does a fuck ton of damage,
Yeah.
even if they don't understand its bug, and they know it's strong as fuck. So, like, you're still evaluating this. I don't think the knowledge it's a bug skews you to that much of an advantage. I think mechanical things like that are just weird. Like, I view the Pudge Chen hook in that area, honestly. I view some of the Visage bugs that have existed in that area. I view some of the Bat Rider bugs that have existed in that area. Like, they're weird mechanical things. The Lone Druid Armlet. I think AUI's blog post was very level headed and gave a very good rundown if you want to go read that about the history of some of the more famous ones and how he categorizes them. And I think most of those fall into that category. This is not in that category. This is in the other category, which is, in my mind, the a malicious category. It is a category where you are gaining an unfair advantage or knowledge that you should not have or information you should not have that an enemy cannot also gain or cannot be aware of based on feel unless they have that knowledge. So the difference in my eyes is that if you are abusing the smoke, if Team A is abusing smoke bug and Team B is not, Team B has no way or ability to counteract that unless they have knowledge of the smoke bug. Now, if they have knowledge of it, apparently there's a way you can kind of play around it. And then it kind of goes back to an argument of, well, it's even footing because you can like juke, you can fake juke the smoke usage against people abusing the bug, apparently. So then it becomes really weird. But I think that use case is completely thrown out the window because there are so many teams that did not use it or likely were unaware of it. And you probably know that if you're using it. I think this argument of the teams using it, saying like everybody's using it, is complete bullshit. That is not a good reason to do anything. Yeah. And clearly, a lot of the teams weren't fucking using it, so you're just wrong. And there were teams that played against other teams that did not use it, or chose not to, or were likely unaware. So, like, okay, you're just incorrect if that was your argument. Maybe it's a fair assumption based on who you were playing against or scrimming, but like ended up being incorrect. And I think that's a bad argument anyway. So ignoring that situation, this bug is very different because you have a team like Team B that doesn't know about it, can't do anything. You can't ban it. You can't be aware of it. You can't feel a team's ability to read your smokes better because of a bug. You're just going to chop it up to they were outplaying us. That's not like, damn, this tiny hero's doing a fuck ton of damage, guys. We got to start banning or picking it. And the meta develops from there. Like, you can't have a meta develop off of this thing because it's an informational gain. To me, that's very malicious. And I think anybody who is using this purposefully, knowing that, used it maliciously. Like, there's no doubt. I think the other one that fell into this category that AUI's blog post brought up was the Shadow Demon bug. They got abused at a major by, I believe, Save.
Yeah.
Used it in an official on the main stage. I'm sure there were other players who also used that bug at various points. That, I think, is also malicious. Like, that one you can play around, but I think that's in the more of the gray area because you're exploiting something in the game to gain an advantage that you otherwise can't have unless you do this.
You are intentionally doing something in order to get that advantage, right?
Yes.
Something that you would not normally do,
Yes.
right?
So that
Whereas
is
the
different.
tiny toss and stuff, like you're going to use toss. You can't not use toss.
Yeah, it's just
but
a
you
scaling
can
thing.
choose not to level up Shadow Demons, you know,
I mean, that was
shard.
clearly like you're gaining something you shouldn't be gaining by doing something purposefully. It's a
Yeah.
malicious bug use. Now, there's a very weird gray area between all of these, which is where you have a mechanic that is like kind of a scaling mechanic. So, like a tiny toss thing that's consistent. But what if some players know about something? For example, what if you have a mechanic that does extra damage on a spell? If you use it a certain way, and only some players know about it.
Mm.
That to me is the real fucking hard gray area in Dota, because those are really difficult to evaluate. You then have like weird and I've known some of these in the past few years. They're not the most game breaking, but they're.
Do you remember any of them still?
I'm not gonna say them.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about them because I think it's a very weird gray area. It might get people in trouble. It might not. These are things that potentially involved conflicts between teams and orgs in the past, right? So like it's been resolved through those channels, but I'm not going to go
You don't want to
awaken those
dredge up
beasts.
old history.
Yeah,
Because it's not still in the game, right?
right.
Okay.
Well, yeah. As far as I
Okay.
know, they're not in the game. If there was
Okay,
something I
sure.
knew that were being abused that's malicious that was in the game, I would tell someone.
Okay.
I'm not sitting here like protecting teams abusing shit. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I just don't see a point in bringing up things that are going to get people attacked that have been already resolved appropriately, right?
Okay.
Whether I agree with that or not, it's resolved. But what I'm saying is these types of things have existed. You basically had instances where certain spell interactions or mechanics, to simplify it, made a spell do more damage. And not every team knew about that or knew how to use it. Those are, I tend to think they're like in the malicious category, honestly. Because
yes, I would agree
it's
that
like,
is in the malicious
come on,
category.
dude. At the same time, people can argue that they're doing work to find these things.
Okay.
Which,
that argument bears no fruit whatsoever with me. Robbers work very hard to plan out their robbery. That doesn't mean that it just automatically makes the action okay.
I tend to agree. I don't really think they're defendable. Basically, what it comes down to is I feel like most of these things, people have a general good average gut read.
Sure.
Of like,
agreed.
Is this the right thing to do or the wrong thing? And most people fucking know. And we all fucking know, unlike something like this, using the smoke bug was the wrong thing to do. And so therefore, just fucking man up and take responsibility and move on. And if you get disqualified, you get penalized. Like, that's fucking life because it was malicious.
Okay.
I am always surprised at how many people use this shit, because I hate that kind of shit. And I feel like you should have enough pride that you shouldn't want to or need to use it. Like, if I won a Dota match because I abused something, I would feel like shit. And I don't understand how more people don't. But I guess that's just the world.
I think I know exactly why you feel like shit and lots of other people don't.
I mean, yeah, maybe some people have more morals or something. I don't know what the fuck it is. I'm not going to call them out, but like, god damn, dude. What the fuck is wrong with like so many of these competitive people by nature? I mean, it's true in it's not just esports, but I think esports, the vehicle to doing it is a lot easier than in traditional sports. Like, I think it's harder to cheat in a professional game of basketball, for example. Now, you can match fix those and do a bunch of gambling shit. That's a different category. But like to actually hardcore cheat in like a traditional sports, kind of difficult, There's only so many mechanics. There's like, it's very visible. In these video games, there's like so much shit going on. It's
sure.
Really hard.
I'll give a counterpoint to that. There was like the baseball one is pretty famous, right? Baseball pitchers will oftentimes have something sticky in their glove that they'll, swipe on their finger.
The whole signal controversy, right?
Yeah, where there was the camera
Astros and whatever. So yeah, it does happen. And honestly, I think it probably happens a lot more than people think, because I think most people are ultra competitive when they're in these fields at the top, and they'll like justify and do anything to win in their mind, right?
For sure.
And so they probably just cheat all the fucking time, to be honest. And it doesn't surprise me this happens in Dota via these types of things. But like, when you fucking discover it, I mean, that's what it is, man. Like, what is this debate about? Like, it's justified because everybody else is doing it or some shit, or like all these arguments are just so fucking bad. And honestly, I think ESL should have just disqualified every fucking team that used it. That's my fucking take. I don't think that ever would have happened. I understand why.
Okay, why?
Because the whole thing got like fucked because they DQ'd one team before they understood the scope of it, which wasn't necessarily on them. But once that happened, it's like the whole thing's kind of fucked. There's only so many teams you can DQ before your tournament falls apart, and then you're just like losing a fuck ton of money. And these things are already fine margins as well. I'm not using that to justify it, but like these are the reasons they're going to weigh, right? And then
okay,
it's just like,
I have a problem with that though, because do you really believe that losing Tundra and Spirit would all of us? Because it's just two more teams, right?
no, I don't think so. I don't think
do you
so.
really think that vastly changes the financials of that tournament? Like maybe I'm insane. Like myself included, like none of us really know the people we're talking to, and us right now, we don't really know the financials of these situations. We don't get like that kind of insight into those things. But I have a hard time believing that like this was so clearly financially motivated, because obviously Tundra and Spirit will draw so much more viewership that all of a sudden this tournament becomes,
I don't think that's
especially
true.
when tournaments are already at a loss, right? I don't know.
I would have just.
I know a lot of people are really on that train, and I don't know. For me, I just don't really see it. I think it's fucked because of the magnitude difference, right? It's because of the fact that they looked at it and said, well, are you really going to treat the guys who did it 9 times and 7 times the same as the team who did it 115 times? Right? There is a marketed level difference. Now, obviously there should be, I feel I think it's so obvious that there should be a difference in punishment in that, right? Now, whether that punishment is insane, like extremely strict, as Tundra and Spirit are banned for a year and Navi Jr. are banned for life, or 2 years or 5 years, or if it's as small as Tundra and Spirit are fined $20 and Navi Jr. is fined $250. Right. Like I do think I really feel like people are losing sight of the fact that like there is a marketed difference between the behavior of these categories. Like I do think there's a reason why they separated the categories. I don't agree with the punishment that they came up with, but I do kind of get, like, I don't think you can treat those two the same personally. You're literally talking about doing it 12 times more often. Navi Jr. did it 12 times more often than Tundra. There is literally footage where you can watch the Navi Jr. support sit there and do nothing but this bug over and over and over again. He's not doing anything but that for a period of time. He's just AFK doing that. He's literally changing the way he plays in order to utilize this bug. And for me, like, I think that clearly does need some heavier punishment.
I think if you want to delineate a punishment, you find someone more based on their usage. But
Sure.
I think as a baseline, everybody should have been DQ'd. I don't think you can DQ someone in for cheat. Like, if you're saying someone abused a bug and cheated and gained an unfair advantage, then that's it. If you used it once or you used it 100 times to gain that advantage, you gained an advantage. And if it's enough to skew a match outcome, then like you fucking gained an advantage. That's it. Right?
Agreed.
I mean, some team could just be more efficient at it than another team. Like, that doesn't mean they're any less malicious in their intent.
Yeah. Okay.
They're just better at it, So I would have DQ'd them. If you want to find Navi like $10,000 compared to 1,000, yeah, that's fair, because they obviously were being dumber about it. But like, I think the only drop off case I think that exists is if you have a gray area where like a team used it once or twice, or like it appears that they might have, but you can't know.
Yes, I think the moderate other stuff and whatever they said, like systemic and moderate use of it, like those two, the once or twice or the accidental guys, like, okay, if you used it once or twice, like you can, I think it is hard to call it malicious at that point in time when it's possible. Like, I'm sure if those players, if DQ was on the line, they're probably going to say, I just did it to see if the bug was still there, so we could disguise our own smokes.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, I mean, you can alt click enemy items.
Yeah.
And like, it looks very similar. So if you're in the area where you can't tell, then I mean, I think you give benefit of the doubt if it's literally a one use thing, because it's like Can't prove anything from that. But these other guys obviously used it. I just want to DQ them all, man. The problem with not DQing them all is it doesn't set a precedent. That's my issue.
Agreed.
And I think setting a precedent is more valuable for the long term than the short term gain, if there is any. Like, it's just if you DQ teams, I guarantee you they're gonna think twice, and they're gonna ask every TO before they use something because they understand that the risk is high. Now it's like you're in this weird gray area again, and it just maybe it's still a decent enough precedent. Teams are gonna think twice about it. And I think they will. So maybe that argument isn't that strong, but I don't know. I think it is. I think it is a little unfair that teams basically got away with it with no punishment. But I mean, that's the world we fucking live in. So welcome to welcome to like every modern system, I guess. I don't know. It makes me a little sad. I've just never. Like I said, I don't understand. I've never understood the teams and players that do this shit. My brain just cannot comprehend the like logic pathway. And then there's always a million arguments and a million defenses as to why they did it and why it's justified and all this shit. And you know what? All that tells me is that they knew it was fucking wrong. People start justifying this shit because they know what they did was fucked, and they're only doing it because they come up with these justifications because they feel like other people are doing it. But like, if you feel like other teams are gaining an unfair advantage through something that's being manipulated, tell the fucking TO at the tournament. No TO is going to let teams like just play with that shit. But nobody did this, apparently. That's the part I don't understand. Nobody did this. Like, nobody went. If all these teams know about the bug and they think everybody else is abusing the bug, and you're in a qualifier and you're like, I mean, I guess we got to use it because they didn't tell us not to and everybody else is using it. Why don't you just tell the TO? Isn't that just like the simplest fucking solution?
I'm not going to lie, Avery. I thought I was going to be coming in here.
Like, what happened? I don't understand. Like, there's so many justifications. I feel like that would have just solved it. And nobody has answered this question as to why that didn't happen from any team. Now, if that happened, okay, then it's on the fucking TO, right? But then you are innocent as a team. Like, then it's, if you tell the TO and they say, well, we're not doing anything, then fucking abuse the hell out of it. And then you have like a written fucking record of like, they told us we can abuse it. So of course we're going to abuse it. Then it's on the fucking TO, right? If they want to allow that. Okay, whatever. But apparently, from what I've seen, no team did this. No team like told the TO this is happening. Everybody's using it. We don't want to have to use it, but we feel pressured to. Nobody fucking did this. Everybody just went along that like, there was some other tournaments that did this and there are some teams that didn't know. So that's the other question is apparently, some teams can claim that they were never told not to use it. But I'd put them in the same fucking category. Like if the TO didn't tell you not to use it and you're going to use it, there's only two scenarios. Either A, you're using it because you think it's a good advantage and no one else is using it.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, you're fucking full of shit and you're cheating and you're malicious.
Yep.
Because it's an unfair information gain and you have it and no one else does. So what the fuck else is that other than you're cheating? Or you're using it because you feel everybody's using it and therefore it evens the playing field. In which case, you should have fucking asked the TO, is this an allowable bug in this tournament? Or
you can talk to an admin. You can talk to the TO. You could send an email to Valve. I know that's insane and it's not going to work most likely, but like you can do that. You can post it on social media. That's the part that really bugs me about this is like all these players, all of a sudden they have access to social media, or like some of them do, where they're like, oh, here's my reasoning for do it. Oh, let me talk to the thousands of people who are interested in hearing from me right now. But you could have done that before. You had that power the entire time. And we've seen the history over and over and over again. Like we've seen it constantly. The community would have jumped all over themselves to be able to get attention onto that bug. The moment somebody posts on that, somebody's going to post it on Reddit. And then somebody's going to fucking, everyone's going to be in that comment thread upvoting and talking about like Valve needs to fix this shit. Tournament, how come ESL hasn't banned this, right? Like you had the power to be able to do this. You didn't do it. Why didn't you do it? Because you knew you were doing something sneaky and underhanded. You knew that you were violating the spirit of competition. You didn't say shit about it because you wanted to use it. And, maybe there is somebody that I haven't heard about who has talked about this, but from what I've seen so far, nobody did that. And I think that's bullshit.
Yeah, I agree. I don't understand. I mean, if there are people and teams that did, then kudos to them, and we may never hear about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's generally what happens. And like I said, if a lot of times teams don't want to go to the TO with a bug that they think is like the tiny toss thing because they know it's basically going to be allowed, and then like they have an advantage with it and they uncover this shit. And I get that competitive spirit to want to be better than other people and find these things that have existed in Dota forever and use them. And like their number scaling things, like that's just how it is. But I think there's clearly certain things that are just not supposed to be there. Like this is just one of them. You're not supposed to be able to gain this information. Nobody should. The way I see it is the ideal conclusion for any event running when this bug is active is that no team is using the bug, right? You would rather exist in a world where no team is using the bug than every team is using the bug. There is no argument I will ever listen to that says every team using the bug creates a better and fairer competitive environment than no team using the bug. Therefore, it should have been reported and banned from any tournament where people felt it was being used. I think it's like it literally comes down to that,
Yep. Agreed.
Like something like Tiny Toss. Tiny Toss is. I would at least listen to an argument. I would have my own opinion. I think you could still argue, okay, we can like ban Tiny, but like, is a TO supposed to just ban a hero from being picked? You can sometimes. It gets really weird. But in that situation, like that damage exists for everybody. Some team picking Tiny because they understand it's strong and getting extra damage out of the spell. They don't have to do anything to get that. They don't have to be aware of it to get that. So you can't. It's like it's more even and it's not as malicious. That is a example of a gray area bug that you can debate forever on, and we might not have a conclusion. This is not fucking that.
No.
Like, what the fuck is everybody doing? I don't understand. And
I thought we were going to come into this with like different opinions, but I think we
that was my
spent too much
biggest
time
gripe.
together.
That's what I go back to is like, what? Where is that? Where is some team that should come out and say we told ESL and they did nothing? If that exists, it changes the entire thing, right? But I have not heard that once. Now it's possible that exists, and again, then it shifts a lot of the blame towards ESL. They created their own shitstorm. But if no team did that, then like, man,
and that is like that is just part of the history and culture of Dota, and I'm not excusing that. But like I have just been so just like I don't know, so fed up with the fact that like getting to know like some players and stuff like that, and then I hear about some situation where they use some sort of bug that like nobody else knew about, or like some shit like this, and this is just like constant. They constantly are hoarding mechanics and bugs and just hoarding this shit and keeping it secret. And I understand that like it gives you a competitive advantage. You're a hyper competitive person. That's why you got into this in the first place, most likely, right? The will to win. I get all that. But you're doing something a little dirty about it. And if you get caught doing something dirty, just shut up and take the L. Like you get DQ'd. It's fucking one tournament. You get DQ'd from one tournament. It's not no one's getting banned over this, right? Just like, you did something dirty, you got caught, the actions have consequences. That's just the way it goes. I have the most like, and to be fair, there's a separation between organization and players, right? The players did the deed, and the organizations are the ones creating all the we shouldn't be banned by this kind of shit, right? But like any player who gets DQ'd or fined in some way by this sort of thing, and then has the gall to complain about it, like, brother, please, you knew you were doing something wrong. Just take it. Just take the punishment. That's how it goes. If you're gonna try and play dirty, you're sometimes gonna get caught. That's how it goes. I don't know, man. I've just been so disillusioned by like just finding out that this is just like a thing that everybody does and nobody seems to talk about.
Yeah, it's a very weird part of Dota. It's existed for as long as I have been in the scene, in various capacities. Sometimes it's been more prolific, sometimes it's been less. Valve obviously took a stance at TI a long time ago, made it very clear, and I think everybody is aware of their stance.
Yeah,
Their stance is,
I got the AUI blog. For those of you guys who haven't read it, you absolutely should. I'm going to summarize it, but it probably won't do it justice. He talks about a couple things. He said he opens the ideal situation not to have bugs, but that's not possible with Dota. He says, well, you're talking about early TIs. Valve had the opinion if it's in the game, it's fair game. That evolved probably after the TI3 Fountain Hook scenario, where they said, report all bugs you want us to use, you want to use to us. And then if it's intended, we'll let you use it and we won't tell the other teams. But if it is a bug, if we do think it's not intended for the game, we will announce it and ban it. And he goes over a history of bugs, all these hero bugs. I thought it was really funny that he talks about all the hero bugs. And I appreciate it because it was really cool, like, look at history sort of thing. Dota does have like an extremely rich history of this stuff, of bugs being in the game and then them sometimes just becoming mechanics. I think that's such a fun thing about Dota, is that it's an evolving game in that regard. And sometimes somebody figures out something that probably is a bug initially, but it's cool. So we just bring it into the game. And so I think it was really cool he talked about that. And then he goes on to say that it's disingenuous to compare those hero bugs that he's talking about to this smoke bug situation. Then I thought it was really funny that all I saw 80% of the comments on Curtis's article are people talking about the hero bugs and comparing them to the smoke bug. Like, he literally says it's disingenuous to make that comparison, and then everybody's in there trying to make that comparison. Like, I don't know. He goes to talk about particle and fog bugs, which I think is probably the closest comparison to the smoke bug. It's another thing that's like information and knowledge is a big part of it, and both teams kind of have access to it. The difference is like one is intentional, the other is largely unintentional.
That is not a manipulated bug. That's just like,
Yes.
You're playing the game and you fucking see shit through fog. What are you supposed to do about it?
Yeah, you
That's
can't
just, the game
undo
is
that
fucking
having
broken.
that knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, that's just,
and there's nothing that you could do. Like somebody could be staring, I guess, at the Roshan pit for 30 seconds, hoping that some particles pop. But it's like, it's so random that it happens. It's not something you can abuse, unlike this smoke bug,
I
right?
mean, unless there is an abuse for it, which there could be, but I have not heard of that. I mean, I always just go back to Valve's stance. I think it's an interesting one because, they said, I was at those TI meetings where they talked about this every year, and it was
and
like
how they got progressively fed up every year. Every meeting that there was, like, I remember he got more and more aggressive, where they're like, hey guys, be sure to report any bugs to us and we'll do this thing, blah, blah, blah. It'll be confidential. Don't worry about it. And then the next year, we told you to report bugs. Please report bugs. And then the next year, you guys need to report these bugs. If you do not report these bugs, there is a chance of you getting disqualified from the event. Like, it's so clear that Valve was just getting fed up with the situation of players not reporting it.
I think, in my view, almost nothing doesn't fall into that category.
Sure.
Like, it's almost impossible to find a bug in the game that is intentional under their words. Now, if you want to debate whether Valve's ruling on this is right, I don't know what that argument would be. But in the situation where we understand that that's Valve's precedent, which I think most players understand is kind of a precedent for the scene overall, even if they're more hands-off now, at least for the last 4 or 5 years for sure, when they were running almost all the majors and stuff, right? Their rule went to those as well. Like, what the fuck is a bug you're abusing that is intentional? I don't understand. The only thing I can think of is stuff that they understand is a scaling or a number difference that's just in the game, which is like the tiny toss, the storm shard, maybe like the lone druid armlet thing, because it's just like working with slightly differently, right? But everybody was aware of it. Like, the things everybody's aware of, maybe they say, yeah, everybody's aware of them. Like, we're not going to remove Tiny from Dota, so play Tiny.
In the chance of talking to Valve, it's potential they actually fix the bug before you go live with the tournament, right?
Yeah, there's also that possibility.
In which case I could see how the team themselves is like, we don't want that to get patched.
Right, because maybe they're a better Tiny team than somebody else.
Sure.
That is the super weird gray area. And that stuff, you're not abusing anything, so like, it's fucking weird. But what the fuck else falls outside of that category? Like, I don't fucking get it. If you are doing anything in the game that you know is behaving in a way that it shouldn't, why would Valve ever let you use it in an international without telling everybody? I cannot think of a single situation in which that makes any sense.
I mean, maybe it's what you were talking about, where if you have a certain item with a spell or whatever, and that spell therefore does more damage than it should, some weird interaction, Valve can make the ruling of like, no, we actually feel like that's intended within the mechanics of Dota. Or they might say, no, that's a bug. Fuck you.
I mean, yeah, it's possible. It's possible it's happened. I don't fucking know. I just think it's really rare, and I think, okay, like even if that's the case, then what's the downside of telling them? Right? Like in theory, there should be no downside to telling a TO about a bug because either the TO says, "Oh yeah, like you can use that," and you still have your advantage, or they say you can't use that and it gets banned for everybody.
Well, you're talking about downside as in if you are a player who wants to play on an even playing field.
Well, yeah, but that's, well, if you don't want to play on an even playing field, those guys are just going to find shit, abuse it, and not tell anybody. And that's what's happening. So that's part of the issue. I don't know. It's fucked, dude. I think this whole area has been fucked for a while. It's just really hard to solve and maybe never will be solved. And so it kind of just, people just like push it under the rug.
Yeah.
If we don't look at it, it doesn't exist. And in most tournaments and games, it probably doesn't play a role. But like some of these things that are defined by thin margins, man.
I think a big part of the problem is that the experts on the situation are the people who are most likely to benefit from it, right? Players are always going to be the guys who find these bugs first, right? Sometimes it's the community. Sometimes players get it from the community, right? Like Eternal NB trolling those, like infamously trolling Reddit and then downvoting posts about like certain mechanics or bugs, right? It's like, but either way, like the players are they are oftentimes the gatekeepers of this knowledge. And so, and there's really no way around that because you just can't expect professional non-playing players, just everyday workers to have the same knowledge they do because that's how they got in that position in the first place.
It's also a volume problem, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think people underestimate the number of bugs that exist in every single patch that goes out. It is astronomical. Like, I cannot remember a patch that came out where I didn't talk to people and they're like, oh yeah, I found these 10 or 15 bugs. And it's just like, and I'm talking about bugs that are like, this spell does more damage than it should, or this thing goes through BKB when it shouldn't, or this spell doesn't cancel teleport when it should, right? Like, if you have 10 or 15 of those, 20 or 30, 40, 50 every patch, what the fuck are you supposed to do? Like,
yeah. Some of them are just like, I would argue they're not even bugs. It's just the patch notes are incorrect, right?
Yeah,
where it says the spell does this amount and it doesn't. And it was probably because the beta test, they had it do this amount, then change their mind for the patch notes or something like that, right? Poor bookkeeping in that regard of the changes they make. But
I mean, thousands and thousands of bugs get reported every year that don't get fixed because there's just too many. Some of those give a competitive advantage. Some of those don't. Some of those are really hard to use. Some of them are easy to use. Like, I agree with Curtis's point. You're never going to get rid of them. There will never be a Dota patch without bugs that people figure out on day one that give you some sort of advantage. So, like, the only thing you have to rely on is morals. It goes back to players having some ethical idea of wanting to play a fair competition. If they feel like something's really, really bad, that they should report it and eliminate it for everybody. That's what I think. And if they feel like stuff is just small differences or like the tiny toss that exists for everybody, whether they know it or not, and they want to leave it, okay, that's an ethical gray area. I at least understand. But like, this shit is just pathetic, man. Like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like,
yeah. Or I mean, I would even say that there's like, outside of like personal morals, there's also just there's some personal responsibility, right? So these guys are in a very privileged position, right? They make thousands, hundreds of thousands, potentially millions playing a video game. You got to that position because of your talent, your hard work, your drive, right? We applaud them for that. We applaud them for beating other people to get to a spot, right? They are one of few where thousands of people want to be able to be in the spot that they're in. They beat everybody else to get to that spot, to be
Thanks,
on that
Austin. I
team, to
appreciate
be
that.
at that tournament, right?
Thanks. I appreciate that.
You were one of those
It
people,
goes-
right? But like, you worked hard to be in that position, but it is still a privileged position that comes with some responsibilities, right? And I think that like there's that the morals and the personal responsibility of like, you should, but there's also a bigger, longer reaching idea here that I think that, as you said, it is just better for the game, better for the competition if people are on an even playing field, right? What makes a great competition is like a relatively even playing field. It can't be perfect, but there's tons of money and time and effort to put to try and make competitions as level as a playing field as possible. And you kind of fuck it for everybody else if you do this sort of thing. And when you fuck it for everybody else, it's not just short term, right? Long term, you're talking about people are less invested in the game. People are not as interested in watching you play or your team play or just, across the board watching these competitions because it's not as interesting if there's just like a bunch of shit going on underneath the table, When they're working with
yeah, I agree.
information they shouldn't have, like you're not playing on an even playing field. And I think that sucks for fans and that will eventually suck for not the game, but the esport. And in which case,
it erodes trust.
Yeah.
I also think there's a simple aspect of like, there will always be people in life that are malicious actors and who cheat and abuse shit, and you cannot stop that, right? Like you can always try and stop it to the best of your ability, but you're likely never going to eliminate it 100%. There will probably always be someone in Dota abusing something maliciously. That's just life. The goal should be to set precedents that punish that so people are less likely to do it, to set rules so it's very clear when you can punish someone for doing it, and to make players have incentives so that they don't feel pressured to do that, right? Like you want to create an environment where you eliminate the will to become a malicious actor as much as possible, because you can't, if someone just wants to, they're going to fucking do it. You can't really stop it.
Yeah.
What I don't understand is the other side of that, which is like, if I were playing a fucking Dota match, I don't want to beat the other team because I abuse something like this. Again, I would feel really fucked up doing that. And I wouldn't see a point in it. If I beat them, how do I know I was better? I just beat them because I abused some fucking mechanic. I had extra information I wasn't supposed to have. Why am I even here? Why am I playing this game? Like
for the millions of dollars.
Yeah,
for your extremely high salary and the millions of dollars.
Dude, honestly, 1 or 2 series does not change your money that you're making over a year.
No.
Not anymore. Maybe in the past at those TIs, but no one was going to cheat in like TI main stage. I'll tell you that. That's like fucking insane if you did that shit. Like you getting 1 extra placement in a qualifier or a lane or something over the course of a year, it's not changing your yearly salary by that much. So honestly, it's not even a money thing. If you're malicious, you want to make money, you match fix. Like that's what those guys fucking do. As sad as it is, this shit is just like it's just some competitive drive thing. But I don't understand it, man. I would just feel so dirty. And if another team was using this shit against me, I would tell a TO like fucking instantly.
Mm-hmm.
Why would I ever not tell a TO if I was playing as a team and they were abusing this shit and I knew it? Like, what? Why? This is the whole part that's just insane to me. So if that's actually what happened, if teams are just like started doing this because they felt everybody's doing it, no one told TO, I don't fucking know. That's disgusting, and that's like a systemic fucking problem because it's going to happen again. If this was a communication fuck up,
legitimately the problem is that I think it's mostly systemic.
Yes. If it's a communication fuck up, then that can be fixed. We can move forward. And TOs are probably going to be a lot more straightforward with what they allow or not. And they're going to be stricter on the punishments. So maybe this will actually improve some stuff going forward, communications wise. But you're still going to have people doing shit, and it's going to be almost impossible to catch them. So there's still an onus on the players to like man up and have some fucking ethics.
Yeah.
And have an even playing field that is not just even, but correctly even.
Yeah.
If they feel like it could be incorrectly, like You have a gut read on these things. It's not that difficult to look at something in the game and be like, oh, that's giving me something that I shouldn't have normally, and therefore is probably not supposed to exist. I should report that, versus like, this spell's doing like 30 extra damage. Like, why is this doing 30 extra damage? Is the patch notes wrong? Is like, come on, dude. These are completely different things. Give me a fucking break.
Yeah. I think it's funny because the even playing field that we're talking about, obviously the players do care about that, right? Because they're on there all the time complaining about, the crowd noise, the conditions at the event. It's too cold, it's too hot, a 300 hertz monitor, chair comfort, table height, food, travel, prize money, like all of this to try and get the best out of them, right? All this shit should be cared about and should be tried to fix so that we can get the A game out of the players for the competition. But why should I, as a fan and a viewer, care about your complaints, care about your soundproof headsets and your white noise and your desk height and the booze and the temperature and all this shit so we can have the best 10 players we could possibly have on the stage to perform to the best of their abilities under the incredible pressure and prestige that comes to create a beautiful match to determine who's the absolute best on that day? Why should I care about any of that if you're going to do shit like this, right? You can't be complaining about all that shit and then be doing this. So please, if you guys see this shit is going to come up again. I know it. You know it. There's going to be some low-key, broken-ass bugs that Valve won't know about or won't fix. We know that's going to happen. TOs are going to fuck shit up again. We know they're going to do that. But what we can do is communicate about it. You find some shit like this, it's not in a gray area, clearly isn't. You're afraid other people might know about it, use it against you, talk to an admin. Try and get it to Valve, put it on social media. It'll get somewhere. Just go out and say, you can even just go out and say, yo, there's this busted shit in the game. I'm going to use it because the TO hasn't said they're going to ban it because Valve hasn't fixed it. You think that's not going to just fucking go right out there? Valve's going to take attention to the fact that you're just saying, I'm breaking the game because they won't do anything about it. They will fix that shit. We've seen it so many times that anything that like actually gets attention will end up getting fixed. I don't know. I just think like this sort of thing bothers me because I don't think this scene is going to be around forever, but it will be around longer if people just, kind of do the basic shit that they're supposed to do, Like TOs have responsibility. And let's not let ESL off the hook, by the way. I'll finish this by dunking on ESL.
I mean, they definitely fucked up the communications.
Yeah, I think it is insane that a tournament organizer who had one of the most egregious rule sets, allowing a coach to be in the game or be in their comms during a game. Remember that DPC rule? Where Alliance had PPD as their coach?
That was another communication thing, though, wasn't it?
They had it in their rules. That's why Alliance did it, because ESL put it into their rule set. Why? Yeah. I have no fucking clue. I actually still don't know. I don't know if that's like some leftover, some Counter-Strike shit or what. But like the fact that blew up on them, as it should have, right? It was an insane rule set to have in the game. Alliance using it is a different thing, but like specifically for ESL, the fact that they did that happened. And then they still have like this kind of issue come up, I think is like, come on, guys. Like, how did you not learn? Like, I understand these mistakes are going to happen, but like, you would think that ESL of all people would be more careful with what's in their rule set, what is and is not in their rule set, let's say.
Yeah, it's all about communication. Like I said, it goes back to if you have something like this and you bring it to the TO and the admin tells you can do it, then you're not at blame. Like then it's on the fucking TO, right?
Yeah, and I think it's pretty clear. I think that didn't happen because it seems like ESL didn't know about or like didn't know that people were going to use the bug, right? Because they already banned it, and then all of a sudden they get reported. Avalos says, "Hey, these guys are using the bug," and then they instantly ban them. They're like, "What? They're not supposed to do that," right?
Yeah, it was a communication fuck up.
So
I will say there have been cases in Dota history where teams and players have had random rules like that, and they asked the TO about it, and the admins told them it was okay, and they later got punished for it.
yeah, I know what you're talking about. I know what you're
So
talking
like,
about.
it also goes that way in terms of
I mean,
communication.
I think you are more safe from that situation with a regular old Joe Blow tournament organizer who only has so much power, you know? Because then you create enough of like a media kerfuffle, right?
Yeah, of course.
That
It's
that they
not
don't want that blowback.
you're never going to get punished that hard in that situation, so it's still better. But that also happens, like that. You brought up like the alliance coaching thing. Like, it's like if they go to I don't know exactly what happened in that scenario, but if you go to ESL and say, "Hey, this is in your rules. Like, this seems weird. Can we do it?" and they tell you yes, then I don't put that on fucking alliance. Like that's
I think
on the TO.
the problem
What are you
from
supposed to do?
the
Like,
problem in
literally
that
email
situation
Valve?
for other players was the fact that these teams had been talking and communicating about rule set for a long time, right? And so they felt there was an informal expectation that like something like this comes up, that you would protest it and tell other teams about it and be like, yo guys, like we should get this out of the rule set. Now, that's sort of like a gentleman's agreement sort of deal. So, as you said, there's only so much blame you can lay on Alliance for that, but that is why some people got very mad about it. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I just think this shit's going to happen always because communication always has some issues. That's my point. And I think
Sure.
it's perfectly fine to punish teams in that, even if they had like confirmation. Like, you just punish them if it ends up being something wrong and you move on. You don't ban them for life. You don't fucking ruin their career. But like, yeah, DQ from a tournament or fine them or suspend them, whatever you think it is based on how the communication went down. But it's not like you're going to prevent that ever happening again,
Yeah.
People fuck up. People are human. That's not the issue I have. Like if teams went to the TO and they told them something and then they did it and then they said, "Oh well, actually you weren't supposed to, so we're gonna fine you." I mean, yeah, it's fucked, but like that's life. Communication shit. You take the penalty, move on. Like, as long as you're not banning people for life, you're not destroying their career over something that they didn't necessarily fuck up. Okay, but I don't know, man. Shit's whack.
Yeah. So I think we're both in agreement of the outcome. We disagree with ESL's ruling, and what they should have done was DQ Navi Jr. and Tundra and Spirit. Right. Personally, I would have DQ'd. I think that Navi Jr. I would have done that, and I would have had Navi Jr. like players and org DQ'd from like the next qualifier. Just be like, you can't play in the next one either. I don't know if that, like, I'm sure there's a million arguments why you shouldn't do that, but whatever. But like, I personally do think that there needs to be extra punishment for Navi Jr. It's just that Tundra and Spirit also should have been DQ'd.
Yeah, I probably would have leaned towards that. But it's easier for us to say that sitting here than like the ones making that decision. That's also a factor.
Yeah, when
I don't
there are teams and players yelling at you.
Also, I feel like that was one of those decisions that no matter what the fuck ESL did, there's going to be a thread with like 1,000 comments saying what the fuck was this decision? It was awful, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
They basically they were guaranteed to get blowback by some portion of the community no matter what their decision was.
Yeah.
Which doesn't mean they should have gone any specific way. It's just like PR wise, it's going to be shit no matter what. So just because it ended up in the outcome where X proportion of people are mad doesn't make it a right or wrong choice, because there would have been X proportion of people mad no matter what. So that indicator means nothing. I don't know. It's just anti-spirited competition. So fuck people who use this shit.
All right. So that kind of wraps that up. Oh, I forgot one more thing. In Curtis's blog, he talked about that was the other ESL thing. The severity of the penalty was the biggest problem that he had, I think, with Navi Jr. And instead of talking about Tundra or Spirit, he talked about the Shadow Demon bug that you alluded to earlier, that Saved used at that, was it ESL 1 Kuala Lumpur? All they got was a draft penalty for it. And I agree. The solution there is that Navi Jr. should not have been punished. This should have been punished less The solution where there is that ESL fucked up and they should have punished Save more. They should have just DQ'd them from the tournament because they had already stated the morning of. Apparently, this is what is from his blog. ESL stated it that morning. Save used it later that day. So that should have just been an instant DQ. But all right. Last week, Avery, just a quick update. Last week we did our power rankings. And there was a lot of agreement, a lot of disagreement, but we have the outcome. You and I can say whatever we think, whatever we believe the teams are at, but when it comes to the actual competition, there's only one winner and one loser. And currently, the teams who made it through the group stage to be one of the top 8 teams at Fisher Playground: BetBoom, Heroic, Parivision, Falcons, Spirit, Liquid, Tundra. All expected names. I would say all names that we had in our top 10. And Talon, a team that we did not have in our top 10 whatsoever. And Talon beat Team Liquid in the lower bracket as well. 2-1 Team Liquid to move on. So they are still alive as of us recording this. So they are kicking ass, man.
Yeah, underdog run for sure. Not that team was that bad. They have really skilled players. And I actually debated between them and Aurora when I put that 1C team on mine. I think they're kind of close. I think they're closer than people think. I think Talon's overperforming this event or playing up to their level that they can, which is really good to see. Makoto's owning. WS is getting to fulfill his prophecy that he's had for a long time of like
Cuckoo's
the best
back.
offlaner from C. They have a good shot caller. I think that team is really strong. They just haven't had. They just started getting good results. Like they got through a lot of the qualifiers. They won 3 out of the 4, right? So they were starting on the uptrend, but I was kind of unsure what that would actually look like on land. But hey, they are proving themselves right now. That's awesome to see because we need more global competition. That's a really cool and exciting team to watch. They have explosive players. I'm all for it. I still am not sure I would have put them in that top 10, but after this, they're moving up. They're moving up fast. They're beating some good teams, beating some European teams.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big shout out about those guys. Those guys did not get top 6 through beating some slouches. They are Western European slayers, which I almost am beginning to worry that maybe they're only Western European slayers because they have beat on this list. They beat Game of Gladiators, best of 1. They beat Tundra, best of 1. Avalos, 2-1 in a best of 3. They lost to BetBoom, but they took a game off of BetBoom at least, and we both had BetBoom very high. And then they 2-1 Team Liquid. So next up is going to be Team Spirit. So we'll see whether or not they can take down an Eastern European team. Eastern Europe does seem to be pretty hot right now, especially with Parivision. I mean, Parivision just beat Heroic and BetBoom, who I mean, they're Eastern Europe, even if were playing in Western Europe, you know. And Tundra and Falcons are in the top 3 right now, which we both had. I think Tundra was like 4th for me or something, and you had him in top 3. I think
we both had him in the top 4. So
okay, top 4, yeah.
Pretty accurate there. I mean, I had Tundra pretty high on both. I had them top 3 in both of mine. I think that team is incredibly strong. I was actually surprised to see how many people commented that they felt that was unwarranted, just because the team just formed. They hadn't had that many results. But man, like you look at the core of that team. I'm telling you, you could plug my fucking dog and my cat into like the 1 and 2, and they'd still be like a top 8 in the world. Like the 3, 4, 5 are just way too strong. Which I'm not flacking the other 2. I think they got really good 1 and 2 now, but it's just like I think that roster was going to be strong no matter what. So I'm unsurprised to see them there. BetBoom crashed the fuck out. I don't know what the hell happened to them. I still rate them pretty highly, but like I don't even think it was choke. Honestly, they just were off, man. Like if you watch, I'll tell you when a team choked.
I haven't watched any of the games. So I will be fully front with that.
I was watching games. It wasn't just straight choking. It was just like they were just not closing games out, which I think is something they didn't usually struggle with, especially with Pure, right?
Do you think that's actually different than choking? Because I feel like that has been an issue where where there have been times where I would say they choked, and it was because they didn't close the game out, where the game went late.
I don't think so. Some of those games they lost are like they're hard games to close out. It wasn't like they were up 40K and choked it. It was like you're going high ground against like the games today. They were trying to go high ground against Sniper, and it's like if you fuck it up once or twice, you can easily lose that game. You know, they just weren't clean enough. Basically, like the team fighting was not crisp. The strategic decisions weren't as good as they usually are. I
Okay.
just don't think they played well. And honestly, it happens. Like I think Dota's too reactionary. You have these like, I mean, that's kind of the nature of everything competitive, but it's
Yeah.
like it's way too quick to just have a team have a bad land and then suddenly they're garbage, you know? Oh, they're
Mm.
just complete trash. Obviously, this isn't working. They need to kick this guy. And then when you win a land, oh, we always do. These guys were good. They're the best players in the world. It literally swings that fast. So I'm not going to, just because they had one bad lane and crashed out, I'm not completely reevaluating them or anything. I genuinely think they just had a bad tournament for whatever reasons. And I
So
would
you're
not put too
saying
much weight on it.
you were surprised by some of the community's reaction to our power rankings, and you say that people may overreact to single results, such as this comment on Reddit that I found.
gonna
Don't
call
worry, I
someone out,
saved it.
dude?
I saved it because I knew. I
Oh
was
my
like, you just
God.
wait, motherfucker. One best of one victory for Yakult Brothers over Tundra. One best of one. And this man commented, watch Cap and SVG's power rankings yesterday, and seeing China beat Tundra after both of them glazed Tundra as top 3 strongest teams right now, and not even having China in top 10 feels pretty good. Well, I don't know how you're feeling right now, but according to my calculations, I believe being in the upper bracket final limits you to 1, 2, 3. Oh, top 3 at the tournament. And I believe
Bro, you
that
ain't
would
gotta
put
do this guy
Extreme
like that, man.
Gaming at a tie between 9th through 11th, which one would argue is, possibly outside of it. I still had a China at 10, but, and Yakult Brothers at a tie between 12th and 14th. So, what can you do?
Well, okay, you
I'm
really
just
fucked
saying,
that
you guys
guy
going to
up,
call
but
us out. I can do the same. All right. It's a
to be
little
fair, I
fun
think
back
that
and
is.
forth.
I think it does show. I actually think that is exactly what I would expect. I think these Chinese teams are very capable of taking a game off anybody, but I don't think they're capable of going deep in land right now.
Mm.
And I think when you take a game off anybody in Dota, it just means you have skilled players. You know,
Yeah.
if you have skilled players, you can always almost take a game out of a series. But
You have good
to go
players, but
deep
not a
in
good
land,
team.
right? To go deep in land, you need some structure and consistency, and like a good coach, captain setup. You need consistency through the practice that leads into a tournament. And so when things go wrong, you can fix them and build on them. And I just don't think those teams are stable enough to have that. It's not a slight at their players. It's just these teams are shuffling every fucking month. So I can't put them in the top 10. And I think we saw that. Their consistency is nowhere close to Europe right now. They could get back there, but it's not there now. But I don't know why you got threw that guy under the bus. I'd probably say the same thing. You know, fuck
Oh,
your
listen,
takes
it's
off
not
and
that
everything.
guy. We're gonna blur out his name, and also that I'm just saying that comment had 12 other people agree with him.
No,
So
but that is my point. Dota, I feel is okay. Every competitive thing is reactionary, but I think that Dota is on steroids when it comes to reactionary. It
yes,
swings so fucking much. It's insane. You can lose a 1v1 and go from top 3 team in the world to why don't they kick this guy like that fast? It's crazy, dude.
I mean, I think it's because most of their games, the basis of the game more often is player skill, right? Where you can see whether or not somebody's hitting their shots, whether or not somebody is playing well. And I think too much of Dota is based around draft and strategy. And so you get a bad draft or you get countered. Let's say you get cooked on the draft. Maybe it wasn't a bad draft, but they did a better job, right? It makes you look really bad as a team, right? And so you watch that game and you say, what the fuck happened to these guys? These guys are washed, right? Whereas maybe it's as simple as possibly fixing their draft or fixing some of their strategy inside of the game, and then all of a sudden they look, it's a 5% fix or something like that, but they look 50% better. Right.
I mean, even worse than that, you don't even know what's a good draft until usually a month later.
Oh yeah,
you can guess, and teams are trying to figure it out. But when you look back at a meta a month or two, it's really easy to be like, God damn, these guys got lone druid every fucking game when it was Imba broken. Like, how'd that,
yeah.
Mickey got to play Furion 3 times first pick at TI. How did he get Furion? It's easy to hindsight these metas and be like, well, of course they outdrafted him. Liquid got every premier support at TI, and they're due. I think that team is really hard to ban against, but you get my point.
Yeah.
At the time, it's way harder to tell who's out drafting who to that degree. So, yeah, you could be getting severely out drafted every game on a tournament and bomb out, and people look at you and go, "Man, this team's fucking trash." And then a month later, you can just go, "Oh, they just could not draft for shit," which is a different issue. I mean, that still makes you bad, but you were just off the meta. And then maybe you're on this meta and you're performing again. So
yeah.
that's why I don't.
Or
You have to kinda
like
average these
looking
things out.
back, some team drafts say Carry Bloodseeker. That would be a trash decision. They lose that game, trash decision. What the fuck are they doing? But now the meta has swung forward. Carry Bloodseeker super legit, and it's destroying. You know, sometimes that's just the way she goes.
But I honestly think we weren't that far off. Not that that was difficult to do. You put a lot of these European teams in the top 6, they're probably gonna get top 6.
Yeah.
But some things that I saw that I felt I am still sure of is the inconsistency and shakiness of that Liquid roster. Like this was another tournament where they had a close 2-1 in the lower bracket. If they win that, maybe they build the momentum and go like Thailand, but they didn't. So now it's a bad result. They're just always on that knife's edge, man. I don't know how they are always like that with every roster they have, but it feels like there's one series in the tournament. If they win that, they're top 3. If they don't, they're like 8th or 9th, or they bomb out of Dream League or something, right?
Sure.
I don't know what that says about that team. Maybe it's the way they practice or scrim or something. And
do you think that's consistency? Because there is something about it, like they more often than not clutch out that series, right? Because they have gone deep at tournaments more often.
Yeah, the results are great.
Like what is that? The fact that they always get close, but they more often than not do push through.
I again just go back to I think they're a team that learns really well, but they kind of start out a bit slow. They need to warm up both play wise and strategy wise. I think they've probably said that a couple times. Like Blitz has talked about it. So I think again, if they can squeak out those early series wins, they're really strong. But if they get inched out in those series for whatever reason, I mean, it only takes 1 or 2 series loss to get eliminated, and you don't get that chance to learn. I don't know. I think that they're also a team that has had. There's all these teams that fall in this category of teams that have like health issues, and I think they get pushed towards that as well. And I think they're one of them, right? They had like Boxy health issues for one of those years, and stuff like that. Really, I mean, he's like their biggest shot caller, so that really hurts you. Same with Nigma Galaxy. I would have ranked Nigma Galaxy higher in my top 10 personally, but like they're always plagued by health issues. I'm serious. I think it's one of the biggest factors limiting that team. If you look over the last 3 years, is Miracle just can't play a full season healthy.
Well, according to Admiral Bulldog, he just needs to get off the Red Bull or the Monster or something. So
yeah, there's always an easy fix. I'm not blaming the health. I'm just saying like it's a factor a lot of people don't consider because in esports, it's not like you go out, break your leg, and you're out for 6 months. It's a lot harder to tell and see, but it exists, and some teams they struggle with it more than others. So yeah, maybe that pushes them there. But I'm still iffy on this Liquid roster, man. It's just like. I think they will always get it together when it matters, but in all these random lands throughout the year, dude, I still put them in that like 5th to 4th spot on average because I think they're gonna have a 9th place and then they're gonna have a like 2nd place, So together, they're still middle of the pack for
me. Okay, this episode has gone pretty late. Fast reaction. TI in Hamburg, 4 days in the stadium instead of 3. We got an extra day. Thank you, Valve. I want to say that. Thank you for the extra day. More teams get to play in front of an audience. I think that's nice. I like that. So shout out to that. Any other reaction?
I don't think so. I think I expect TI to be in Europe or maybe like a Singapore, Southeast Asia type deal, maybe one more time, but I don't think it's going to go anywhere else. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it's just in Europe every year from now on. I think that's just, it makes the most sense. In terms of visas, economics, logistics, right?
Fan bases, right? Biggest fan bases are going to be Europe, Southeast Asia. If you're not going to obviously Russia or China, so
I think you could do it in Singapore, but it's expensive. It's an expensive country, so it's like it's tough. And I think the thing is, it's PGL. It'll probably always be PGL. They're not going to go do it in Singapore. Like they don't have anything there infrastructure wise. If it was a TO that does, I know some of the TOs do. Could be more likely if that's
Yeah, Blast
gets
has
swapped
their
up in the
connection
future.
with Singapore,
Yep.
right? Because
So-
they ran a Counter-Strike event in Singapore.
Yep.
I don't know inside info here, but I would fully expect them to run a Singapore event at some point. At least I'm hoping they do.
Yeah, I think they will try. Again, I think Blast has stuff there. I think ESL has stuff in Malaysia.
Yep.
And so if you have a teal like that, it becomes more likely because running a CETI is honestly pretty hype. I think you can do pretty well with it. You'll pack that stadium 100%, right? We had the Singapore TI thing was packed.
Mhm.
It was a pretty cool event. But for PGL to go back there on their own without Valve forcing them, that ain't gonna happen. So I expect a lot of European TIs, which fine with me, man. A quick hop across the ocean, and I think the European crowds are generally pretty good.
Yep, agreed. Okay, that's it for another episode of Not for Broadcast. We may be slow in recording the next one. This will come out, and you guys will already know the outcome of Fisher, but that will also mean that we are probably already in Copenhagen for Blast, and then we are going to be gone for the rest of February. So we're going to be out and about. We will try and record while we're out and about, but just know that it may not be every week. But as always, thank you very, very much for watching. Thank you for all the comments and stuff. Appreciate all of you guys. Keep throwing shit our way. We'll throw it back. And see you guys next time.